Well, gambling and the harm it causes, not just to gamblers but those around them, is not a new topic, but it is being cast in a very different light by a new national report. The Australian Gambling Research Centre has released the first study of its kind, pulling together a national snapshot of how many of us are gambling and what it's costing. It's a confronting picture. We're losing more than $32 billion a year, the highest losses globally per capita. Here in Queensland, more than 70% of adults gambled in the last year. That's the highest rate in the country. The issue isn't just about money, though. It links gambling to financial stress, poorer mental health, and even family violence. Now, meet Mark Kempster. After hitting rock bottom with gambling himself, he's turned his experience into advocacy, working with young men and pushing for reform. I spoke with him recently and asked him what stood out most from this report.
That it's not surprising to me at all, and the sheer numbers that they're talking about. In my role now, working as a gambling reform advocate and speaking about my own lived experiences of what I went through, and every time I speak up in the media, radio, TV, online, or wherever I do, it's the amount of people and the amount of families that get in contact with me to try and get help for people, to let me know that they've got people in their family struggling, that they're struggling with addiction. It's become such a prevalent thing across Australia. We're going through this basically an epidemic of gambling addictions, and I think the data has proven that, which is what's come out today.
What sorts of things do people say to you, Mark?
Oh, just that they're completely stuck. They're completely lost. They don't know where to turn. They feel like that they're completely trapped by the industry. They feel like they can't get away from it, and we see that with the amount of advertising that people are subjected to. Like you can't watch TV, you can't watch the news, you can't read the newspaper, you can't go online, you can't walk your dog down the road without seeing a billboard for gambling in most of the big cities across Australia. So the amount of people that tell me they feel just so trapped and so that they're never going to be able to get out of their addictions because it's in their face so much and it's promoted so much. It's and the amount of young people that talk to me as well. Like this is people with like families with people who are 17, 18 who are already in addictions, or the actual addicts themselves trying to talk to me and going, I don't know where to turn because we have a government not doing anything about trying to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. You said it was not shocking to you. The stats show that Queensland recorded the highest gambling participation rate in the nation, more than 70% of adults partaking. Why do you think Queensland is leading those numbers?
Look, I'm based in Tassie, but I do a fair bit of work with people in Queensland, and it's similar. I think Queensland and New South Wales are in the same boat with the amount of pokie machines. Like the amount of venues that people have access to in Queensland is a lot more than other states, probably with a lot of clubs and things like that. So it's a lot to do with that, but it's also a very sporting state, Queensland. You guys pride yourselves on your sport and how passionate you are about your league and all other sports up there. And I think that a lot of young men in particular and people around sporting clubs in local clubs get brought up in a gambling culture these days, like a lot of clubs. And this is, unfortunately, clubs have been put in this spot to try and make money, but they have a lot of things like punters clubs and things along these lines which people get subjected to early on in their lives. And then when you start watching the sport, you see all the ads on TV around gambling and given how much, Queensland people love sport, they would well be watching a lot of it and seeing a lot of advertising every day. So I think it's a cultural thing, but it's the position that our government has also put us in by not doing anything about reforming the industry at all.
Mark, the report highlights not just the dollar impact, but also the harms that ripple out from that, from financial stress to mental health and even family violence. How important is it to broaden the conversation beyond just money?
Well, that's the thing. There's so many other parts of an addiction, especially the gambling, that affects so many other people around it. Like I know for myself that it affected all the relationships in my life when I went through a gambling addiction. I've lost friends out of my life because it turned me into such a horrible person to be around. I was never a violent person or an abusive person, but it turns you into such a zombie or just such an angry person because you're dealing with this thing in silence. You don't want to let people know or let people in because we just still don't want to talk about about it with the stigma of what's going on with these addictions. So like it's really important to understand the runoffs that addictions cause, and it causes crime, it causes family violence in particular. Like I think we saw the data that came out today to say how much more domestic violence there is, pardon me, around grand finals and finals times in football because of people are gambling and losing money, and that's causing them to become violent, which is horrible to think about. But we have to broaden, yeah, exactly right. We've got to broaden the conversation and not just away from just the actual monetary losses of people.
What would you like to see done? You said it's really part of the culture of Queensland, of the nation even, yet it is having these significant public health and safety risks, not just the financial impact, as we've been discussing. Given that it is so ingrained in our culture, what would you like to see done?
And I'm not against gambling either. There is a place for gambling in Australia. I don't want to take that away from people who enjoy it. This is obviously not everyone who gambles falls into an addiction, but to help the people who do, and that number's becoming so much bigger, we need to remove gambling advertising in all forms across Australia. We don't need to be advertising it the way it is. It doesn't need to be through all programming on TV, all sporting events, to tell people that they have to basically gamble on sport to enjoy it. That's the 100% main thing. And I think that would make a huge difference. And we've seen in the Murphy report that's been tabled on the Prime Minister's desk in Canberra for the last 2 years, that was the number one recommendation out of that we needed to remove the advertising to help people and to actually take this as a public health issue, not just a gambling issue. Like this is no difference to the cigarette advertising, the way cigarettes were handled when we decided to do something about that as a nation. So we need to treat gambling as a public health issue in the same way.
Why do you think that there's so much hesitation around banning the advertising?
Oh, I've got a few thoughts on why, which I probably can't say on radio, but I think there is so much vested interest in Canberra. We've seen that the work David Pocock's doing with the amount of lobbyists that are in Canberra and who have a lot of sway and a lot of money to have their opinions heard more than everyone else's. And I think unfortunately the Prime Minister's decided to take those talking points and to listen to those people, and has really kind of disregarded anything that lived experienced people like myself, or people who are not wanting to ban gambling, like the Prime Minister is trying to frame it as. We're trying to just help people and reform the industry. So I think it's a lot to do with that, unfortunately.
Mark, if somebody who's listening along and they're thinking, wow, this sounds a whole lot like me, and I might be having some problems with gambling and feeling those impacts, like you said, it sort of infiltrates every other aspect of your life, what would you like to say to them?
But there is hope. You can get out of it. Like I went through it for 10 years. I lost $100,000. I almost lost my partner and son out of my life because of the person I turned into. But if you've got a problem, you just need to speak to someone. You're more than welcome to speak to me. All my social media channels are open, so you can speak to me. Go and see your GP because you can get a mental health plan sorted out for yourself. That was a really important thing that I did, and they're free to go and do. And that allows you to go see psychologists and psychiatrists with subsidies, which is really, really important to have someone to speak to. If you're not wanting to speak to someone close to you about it, that's really important to do as well. But it's so important to just be open about it and trust that the people in your life will support you, who love you. And that's the main thing I really struggled with. That I thought I was going to lose everyone out of my life if I spoke up about things, but it wasn't the case. People who love you will support you through this.
That's Mark Kempster, gambling reform advocate with the Alliance for Gambling Reform. And if you or someone you know needs gambling help, you can access free professional and confidential support via the National Gambling Helpline on 1800 858 858 or go to www.gamblinghelponline.org.au. Those services open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Alternatively, if this story has brought up some things for you and that you'd like to discuss, to reach out for the support that you need, you can contact Men's Line on 1300 789 978 or Lifeline on 13 11 14.